I wasn't supposed to be home that summer. I had plans: a sublet near campus, summer classes, a part-time job at the art store. I was going to stay busy, stay distracted. But everything fell through last minute. Roommate bailed, class was full, job dried up. So I packed my life into 2 suitcases and rode the train back to my parents' house, resigned to a quiet, uneventful few months back in the suburbs. It wasn't my parents I was worried about. It was Eli. He was my brother's best friend. That guy. The one who practically lived at our house through high school. Always around, always shirtless for some reason. Always confident in that casual, effortless way that made it seem like the world just worked out for him. And yeah, I'd had a crush on him. A huge, stupid, painfully obvious crush that I buried under sarcasm and avoidance for years. I figured I was past it. But the second I walked into our kitchen that first day back and saw him leaning against the counter like no time had passed, I felt it all hit again. "Eli?" I said, blinking like an idiot. He looked up and smiled, casual as ever. "Hey, stranger, your mom said you were coming in today." Of course she did. Classic mom, setting me up for emotional sabotage and calling it hospitality. I dropped my bag by the stairs, trying not to stare. He looked older, in a good way. Broader shoulders, scruff along his jaw, hair a little longer and messier. The kind of mess that takes actual effort to look effortless. He was wearing a gray t-shirt that clung in all the right places and jeans that had no business fitting him that well. He looked like trouble. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. He shrugged. "Dinner. Your mom's lasagna. You think I'm gonna say no to that?" I gave a tight-lipped smile and opened the fridge, mostly just to avoid eye contact. I needed a second. Maybe 5. Dinner was the usual family chaos. My mom over-explaining everything she cooked, my dad halfway zoned out, my brother talking with his mouth full, while Eli laughed at all the same stories they'd told 100 times. I sat across from him, forcing myself not to look at the way his shirt pulled across his chest when he leaned forward, or how his eyes crinkled when he smiled. It was fine. Totally fine. I could handle this. After dinner, my brother headed out to meet some old friends, and my parents called it an early night. I figured Eli would head home too, but he lingered on the couch, flipping through TV channels like he'd lived there again. "You staying over?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He shrugged. "Might. Couch is kinda crap though. Your brother's room squeaks like hell." I raised an eyebrow. "Okay." He looked over at me. "Mind if I crash in your room?" My brain short-circuited for a second. "My room?" He grinned. "Just crash. Nothing weird. Unless you make it weird." And even though I knew it was a terrible idea, knew I'd probably lose sleep and my sanity, I said yes. Eli didn't bring an overnight bag. Just slipped off his shoes and followed me upstairs like it was still high school, and he was crashing after a late-night video game marathon with my brother. I led him to my room, trying not to let my nerves show. It was weird. Having him in there again. I'd cleaned the place earlier that day. Well, as much as you can clean a room that still had posters from freshman year and a bookshelf that sagged under the weight of old manga and half-used sketch pads. He looked around like he remembered every inch of it. "Still got the same bed?" he said, flopping down on it without asking. "Didn't upgrade?" I scoffed. "What for?" It's not like I come back often enough to justify a memory foam. He leaned back on his elbows, legs stretched out, and gave me a look that landed somewhere between teasing and unreadable. "Still feels the same. Smells like that old lavender detergent your mom uses." I swallowed, standing awkwardly near my desk. "You want a blanket or something?" He grinned. "What, we not sharing?" I blinked, unsure how to answer. He laughed. "Kidding. Chill, man." I grabbed a spare comforter from the closet and tossed it at him. "You get the floor." He caught it easily, then made a show of spreading it out. "You're no fun," he muttered, half smiling. We ended up lying in silence for a while, me in bed, him on the floor beside it, scrolling through his phone. The glow from the screen lit up his face in flashes. It was quiet. The house had settled into that familiar nighttime stillness, creaking wood and distant pipes like a lullaby. "You ever think about how weird this is?" he asked suddenly. I turned my head. What? This. Us. I used to sleep over all the time, remember? But it feels different now. I hesitated. Because we're older? He was quiet for a beat. Yeah, maybe. Or maybe, because your bed's not against the wall anymore and I can see your face better. That threw me. I looked down at him, and sure enough, his eyes were on me. Not just glancing, but looking. Like actually looking, studying. It made my chest tighten. He sat up, leaning back on his hands. You ever wonder what your brother would say if he walked in right now? I laughed nervously. He'd probably assume we were talking shit about him. Or that I was trying to seduce you. Eli added, deadpan. I choked on air. Jesus, you're not funny. He smirked. I didn't say I was joking. I didn't know how to respond. My heart was pounding in a way that felt wildly disproportionate to the situation, but then again, maybe it wasn't. Because Eli wasn't acting like he used to. Or maybe he was, and I just wasn't pretending not to notice anymore. He stood, walked over, and sat on the edge of my bed. Too close. I'm messing with you, he said, voice lower now. But the way he said it didn't sound like a joke. You're kind of quiet, he added after a moment. What's going on in that head of yours? I looked at him, really looked at him, and said the first thing that came to mind. I'm trying to figure out why you're really here. That made him pause. His eyes flicked away, just for a second, then back to mine. I don't know, he admitted. I guess I missed this. This? You. This house. Being around people who actually gave a shit, and maybe I missed you more than I thought. I stared at him. The room felt suddenly very small, very still. Like the air itself was waiting for what came next. But nothing came. Not yet. Get some sleep, he said eventually, standing up. I'll crash on the floor. Like old times. He dropped back down, pulled the blanket over himself, and faced the wall. I lay there, heart racing, staring at the ceiling. Sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, Eli was already gone when I woke up. For a second, I thought I'd imagined the whole thing, that weird conversation, the way he looked at me, the weight of his words. But then I saw the folded blanket at the foot of the bed and a coffee mug on my desk. Still warm. He'd made coffee. For me. I went downstairs in a t-shirt and joggers, bleary-eyed, hoping I wouldn't run into anyone. But of course, Eli was there. Shirtless, leaning over the kitchen island like he owned the place. My mom had already left for work, my dad was God knows where, and my brother was still out with friends, so it was just the two of us again. Morning, sunshine, he said, smirking when he saw me. I rubbed my eyes. You're obnoxiously awake. I'm a morning person, he said, sliding a second mug toward me. And you're welcome. I took it, sipped. It was perfect. Thanks, I mumbled. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed, and studied me for a second too long. I pretended not to notice, focusing on the steam rising from my drink. You still draw? He asked, nodding toward my sketch pad that was peeking out of my open backpack. I shrugged. Sometimes. You were always good at it. I remember you drew that weird zombie version of your science teacher, and your mom nearly had a heart attack. I snorted. She thought I was possessed or something. He laughed, then quieted. You should draw me sometime. I raised an eyebrow. What, like a French girl? He grinned. Exactly like that. I'll even bring the grapes. I shook my head, hiding a smile behind my cup. You're impossible. We spent the day hanging around the house. It was hot out, too hot to do much of anything, so we ended up on the back porch, lazily watching clouds drift by. Eli pulled his chair closer than necessary. Our knees bumped more than once, and neither of us moved away. It was subtle. Just enough to question. Just enough to feel. Later, he asked if I wanted to drive with him to get ice cream. Said he needed to escape the house, but I knew better. We ended up at this tiny roadside stand we used to go to when we were kids. He ordered vanilla with rainbow sprinkles, same as always, and got me the mint chocolate chip I didn't even remember telling him I liked. We sat on the hood of his car, feet up on the bumper, legs brushing. Feels like we're 17 again, he said. I nodded. Except back then you never talked to me unless my brother was around. He gave me a sideways glance. That's not true. It kind of is. He licked his cone slowly, then looked at me. Maybe I just didn't know how. I stared at him. How to what? He looked down at his lap. How to not look at you the way I did. The air shifted. It was like the breeze stopped, like the crickets went silent, like the world narrowed down to the two of us and the space between our shoulders. I didn't know what to say. My brain was stalling, trying to catch up with my heart, which was now thudding somewhere in my throat. Eli laughed softly, like he was trying to brush it off. Forget it. That was weird. I've been thinking too much lately. No, I said, maybe a little too quickly. I just wasn't expecting that. He looked at me again, eyes softer now. I wasn't either. We sat in silence after that, watching the sun dip lower in the sky, pretending we weren't aware of the electricity humming just under our skin. When we got back, the house was still empty. My brother wouldn't be back until late. Eli lingered at the bottom of the stairs, while I stood, awkwardly, near the hallway. I should shower, I said, more to fill the silence than anything else. He nodded. Cool. I'll be in your room. I stared at him. He shrugged, like it was no big deal. I figured, you know better, AC. Right. I took the fastest shower of my life, barely registering the water. When I stepped into my room with a towel around my neck, Eli was lying across my bed, flipping through an old sketchbook of mine like he belonged there. This is good, he said, tapping a page with his finger. It was a charcoal portrait I'd done freshman year, rough but raw. The subject? Him. I froze. You drew me, I swallowed. It was for a class. He didn't say anything right away. Just looked up at me with something unreadable in his eyes. And then he said it. You liked me back then, didn't you? My heart dropped into my stomach. There was no way to lie now. Not with him holding proof in his hands. It's okay, he said, standing up. I just wish I had noticed sooner. Eli's words hung in the air between us. Too heavy and too gentle at the same time. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to backpedal, to laugh it off, to shove the sketchbook under my bed and pretend this moment never happened. But another part, quieter, braver, was tired of pretending. You were always busy noticing other people, I said softly. He tilted his head. Meaning? Meaning, you always had some girl around. Football, parties. I was just your best friend's little brother. Eli looked at me like I'd just said something that cracked open the floor beneath him. That's not true. It felt like it. He sat down on the edge of the bed again, hands loosely clasped between his knees. I wasn't ignoring you, he said. I didn't know what any of it meant back then. I thought it was a phase, or I was just confusing comfort for something else. He looked up. But it never really went away. I leaned back against my desk, the wood edge digging into my palms as I tried to ground myself. You saying this now, I said. Feels surreal. Yeah, he laughed under his breath. Tell me about it. We sat like that for a minute, quiet, both processing, both pretending this wasn't the biggest shift in our dynamic since we met. I should sleep, I said finally. Eli stood, brushing his hands down his jeans. Mind if I still stay here? I hesitated, then nodded. Floor's all yours. he grinned. Generous. I crawled into bed, turning off the light. The room dimmed into shadows, lit only by the soft glow of the streetlight outside my window. Eli settled onto the blanket, the sound of him adjusting his position almost too loud in the silence. I lay on my side, eyes open, staring at the ceiling. My thoughts were racing. His words, the drawing, the look in his eyes. I didn't know what to make of any of it. But then I heard it, a quiet shift, his footsteps. The next thing I knew, he was sitting on the edge of the bed again. Can't sleep? I asked. He didn't answer right away. Then, I keep thinking about that drawing. My heart started to thump. Why? I don't know. You spent time on it. You looked at me differently. I turned to face him in the dark. I was trying to capture something. You did, he said. It's just weird to realize someone saw you that clearly, especially when you didn't even see yourself. He exhaled, then stood. I thought he was going back to the floor. Instead, he walked around the other side of the bed. What are you doing? I'm not trying to be weird, he said quickly. Just the floor sucks, and I don't want to be in another room. I didn't stop him. He slipped under the blanket like it was the most natural thing in the world. We lay there, not touching, not speaking, just breathing in the dark. I was hyper-aware of the distance between us, how narrow it was. I could feel the heat from his body, hear the rustle of fabric as he adjusted. Remember when we were 15, he said suddenly, voice a whisper, and your mom caught us sneaking beer from the garage fridge? I let out a soft laugh. She grounded both of us, even though you were the bad influence. Still worth it, he murmured. Silence again. Then, softly, do you still like me? My breath caught. Eli, it's okay. You don't have to say anything. If I'm gonna sleep in your bed like this, I need to know. I turned my head. In the faint light, I could just make out the outline of his face, inches from mine. Yeah, I said quietly. I do. His hand brushed mine under the blanket. And I didn't move away, his hand didn't grab mine. It didn't even really hold it. Just brushed against it lightly. Enough to say, I'm here, but not enough to assume anything else. It stayed there, resting near my knuckles like he was giving me the choice. Like he wasn't gonna push. I didn't say anything. I turned my hand over, slow and careful, and let our palms meet. His fingers curled slightly, not a full grasp, just contact. It was warm, soft, tentative. My heart beat so loudly I was sure he could hear it, feel it in my pulse. Neither of us moved for what felt like a very long time. You know, he whispered, I used to think you were off limits. I stared up at the ceiling in the dark, every nerve awake. Because of my brother? Yeah, he said, that. And because I figured you deserved someone better, someone who'd actually know what they were doing. I turned toward him, propping myself up on one elbow. And now? Eli looked at me. Now I'm not sure what I deserve, but I know I don't want to lie about what I want anymore. There was something in his voice. Not fear. Not certainty either. Something in between, like a quiet hope wrapped in self-doubt. Do you know what you want? I asked. He nodded, barely. My hand was still in his. I want to stop pretending that the best parts of my life weren't always here, in this house, near you, he said. I want to stop acting like I didn't notice you getting taller, and your voice changing, and your eyes always finding mine when you thought I wasn't paying attention. I exhaled, feeling something crack open in my chest. I didn't think you saw me back then. I saw you, he said. I just didn't know what it meant. I shifted closer, slowly, like testing a current. Our foreheads nearly touched now. I could smell the faint scent of his shampoo, the warmth of his breath. I thought I was over it, I said. Over you. His thumb brushed my knuckles. Are you? I shook my head. That's when he leaned in. Not fast, not sure. Just leaned in like he was giving me time to pull away if I wanted. I didn't. Our lips met in the softest, briefest kiss. Barely a kiss. A question. When he pulled back, I followed. This time, it wasn't a question. It was an answer. The kiss deepened. Still slow, still careful, but real now. His hand moved to my neck, fingers tentative, grounding. My hand slid to his waist. I could feel the tension in his body, the nerves, the rush of adrenaline. He was scared too. We pulled apart eventually, breathing uneven, foreheads pressed together. That was... Yeah, I said, breathless. It was. Okay? He asked. More than okay. He smiled, a little crooked, a little shy. Cool. Just making sure I didn't misread, like everything. I laughed, the tension dissolving in a wave of something sweet. Something like relief. Nope, you read it exactly right. We didn't talk much after that. Just lay there, side by side, his hand in mine, not trying to force anything. The silence was comfortable now. Eventually, he drifted off. I could feel his breathing slow, his hand still loosely curled around mine. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't overthinking. I wasn't doubting or analyzing or backing away from what I felt. I just lay there in the dark, next to the one person I never thought I'd have like this, and let myself believe, for once, that this could be something real. I woke up before him. The room was bathed in a soft, early morning light, just enough to see the details, not enough to make anything feel harsh or real yet. Eli was still asleep beside me, on his back, one arm resting between us, mouth slightly open. His hair was messy, sticking up in the back. He looked so unlike the guy I'd grown up with, or maybe he looked exactly like him, and I was just seeing it differently now. The night before felt both like a dream and the most tangible thing I'd ever experienced. I rolled onto my side, quietly, not wanting to wake him. Just to look at him a little longer. His hand, the one that had held mine, was still close. I remembered how it felt. Warm, careful, grounding. I remembered the way he kissed me, like he was scared of what it meant, but more scared not to try. I'd waited so long for something like that moment, and now that it had happened, I didn't know what came next. Eventually, he stirred. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the light. When he saw me, his expression softened into something almost shy. "Hey," he said, voice low and raspy. "Hey." A beat passed. "Didn't dream that, did I?" he asked, rubbing at one eye. "No," I said, smiling. "You were very much awake." He let out a breath, like he'd been holding it all night. "Good. I was worried I hallucinated it." I propped myself up on an elbow. "Do you do that a lot? Hallucinate kisses?" He grinned, more awake now. Only the good ones. The mood felt lighter now, like the weight of last night had shifted into something more solid. Less fear, more possibility. He sat up slowly, stretching, his shirt riding up just enough to distract me momentarily. "Do your parents know I stayed over?" "No," I said. "They leave early during the week. You're safe." He nodded, running a hand through his hair. "Cool. I should probably not be in your bed when your brother gets home, though." I winced. "Right, that part." He looked at me. "You worried about that?" "About him walking in and seeing us spooning?" I raised an eyebrow. "A little," Eli smirked. "To be fair, we weren't spooning." I rolled my eyes. "Not the point." He paused, suddenly serious. "You want to keep this secret?" I hesitated. "It's not about shame," I said. "It's new. I don't know what this is yet." He nodded. "Same. But I want to find out." I looked at him, surprised by the calm certainty in his voice. "You do?" "Yeah," he said. "Whatever this is, I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen." A small part of me relaxed then, like a door I didn't realize I'd been holding shut had finally creaked open. Later that morning, my brother returned, loud and tired from staying out all night. Eli played it cool, acted like he'd slept on the couch. I didn't correct him. Not yet. But every time our eyes met, there was something there, a small glint of shared knowledge, a truth that only belonged to us. We spent the rest of the day around the house. Normal, but not. He'd nudge my foot under the table when no one was looking. I'd pass him something with just enough extra contact to feel deliberate. It was like we were slowly drawing a new line, one only we could see. That night, he left after dinner. "I'll text you later," he said casually, like it was nothing. But his eyes told a different story. I walked him to his car. When we got to the door, he looked at me for a long moment, then leaned in, fast, bold, and kissed me once. Short, just a press of lips, but it was enough. He pulled back with a quiet smile. "Sleep well," and then he was gone. I stood in the driveway a long time after the taillights disappeared, my fingers still tingling from where they'd brushed his cheek. Something had changed. Something real had started. The next few days felt like walking a tightrope between the familiar and the completely new. To everyone else, Eli was just around more often, the way he used to be. Dropping by to see my brother, staying for dinner, helping fix stuff around the house like he always had. But to me, every look, every subtle smile, every brush of his arm when no one was watching was electric. It was like we were carrying a secret in our pockets, and every second we were near each other, it buzzed louder. And yet, somehow, it didn't feel like we were hiding. It felt like something just for us. The late-night texts started. Nothing over the top, just check-ins, dumb jokes, memories we'd never shared out loud before. Things like, "Eli, remember when your brother dared me to eat 5 hot dogs in 1 minute? Me. I was the one who dared you. He just egged it on. Eli, damn, you've been the bad influence this whole time." There was one night, Friday, when my brother was out again and Eli showed up unannounced. I opened the door and didn't even have time to ask before he leaned in and kissed me. Quick, like he just needed it. Like it wasn't even a question anymore. We sat on the porch for hours that night. No expectations, just talking. His leg brushing mine, my arm resting against his. Occasionally our fingers would intertwine like it was muscle memory. "I feel like I missed 100 chances before this," he said at one point, his voice low, like he wasn't sure if he should be saying it out loud. "You did," I said, nudging him, "but you're not too late." He looked at me then, really looked, and nodded. "Good, 'cause I want to do this right." It wasn't always easy. There were awkward moments, of course. My brother started to notice Eli was around more, and one night he asked, "You two been hanging out more or something?" Eli didn't even blink. "Yeah, just catching up." It was weirdly comforting, knowing he wasn't flustered, that he wasn't about to bolt. He wasn't ashamed. Neither was I. Eventually, we told my brother. Not in some dramatic announcement, just one night in the living room, when Eli reached over and casually laced his fingers with mine. My brother did a double take, blinked, and said, "Wait, are you too?" Eli raised an eyebrow. "Yeah." My brother looked at us for a second, then shrugged. "I mean, it's a little weird, but whatever. Just don't hook up in the kitchen or something. I still live here too." I nearly choked on my drink. Eli laughed. After that, it all felt easier. Eli started picking me up just for me, not as my brother's friend. We'd go out for coffee, long drives, or just hang in my room watching movies while he fake argued about plot holes. I'd sketch while he scrolled through Instagram and tossed crumpled candy wrappers at my head. He fit into my life in a way I didn't know I'd been waiting for. By the time summer started to wind down and the thought of going back to the city crept in, I realized something that made my stomach flip in the best way possible. I didn't want this to be temporary, and neither did he. "You still moving back next month?" he asked one night as we lay side by side in my bed, his fingers drawing absent-minded shapes on my arm. "Yeah," I said, "but I was thinking maybe you could come visit, or I'd come here on weekends." He looked at me. "Or maybe I finally move out of my place. Get something new." I blinked. "You mean?" "Yeah," he said. "I mean us. For real." My throat went dry. "You sure?" He nodded. "I've never been more sure of anything." And in that moment, lying in my childhood bed, wrapped up in someone who had once been just a part of the background but now felt like the centerpiece, I knew something had changed for good. This wasn't a summer thing. This was the beginning of something real.